Just beneath the waves lurked a fearsome predator, built of cold steel and filled with relentless men. Passenger ships, merchant ships, and warships alike all stood no chance as she silently crept closer, aiming down scope at her target. Unsuspecting crews and innocent passengers went about their days, nervous but none the wiser, until a loud bang would disrupt everything. To their horror, U-48 had caught up with them, a U-boat with a deadly reputation. The U-boat simply looked to see if the ship was surely doomed, and once she determined it was, she turned away, leaving behind the devastation she caused. The most prolific U-boat in World War II was off to her next target. U-48 was a submarine of Nazi Germany's Kriegsmarine during World War II, and she was the most successful that was commissioned, sending hull after hull to the bottom of the ocean. During her just 2 years of active service, she sank 52 ships, as well as damaging 3 more over 12 war patrols conducted during the opening stages of the Battle of the Atlantic. This is her story. U-48 was built at Germania Werft in Kiel as yard number 583 during 1938 and 1939, being launched on March 8, 1939 and commissioned on April 22, 1939, a few months before the beginning of World War II. She was given to Kapitänleutnant Herbert Schultz. When war was declared in Europe on September 1, 1939, she was already in position in the North Atlantic and received the news via radio, allowing her to operate immediately against Allied shipping. We do have to note, many historians and history enthusiasts, including myself, consider the beginning of World War II to be in China with the onset of the Second Sino-Japanese War, which began after the invasion of Manchuria on July 7, 1937. However, the beginning of war for Nazi Germany, and therefore the more pertinent date in regards to U-48 for today's video, is September 1, 1939, following Nazi Germany's invasion of Poland. She was a member of 2 wolf packs. The wolf pack was a convoy attack tactic employed in the Second World War that utilized a coordinated attack by multiple submarines on a single target, like wolves in a pack, hence the name. She left her home port for her first patrol on August 19, 1939, before World War II officially began in Europe for about 30 days. She traveled north on the British Isles and into the North Atlantic, eventually then into the Bay of Biscay. She then proceeded to cruise to the west of the Western Approaches, 2 days after Britain and France declared war on Germany. It was here that she spotted her first target, the merchant ship SS Royal Scepter. U-48 attacked the ship with her deck gun on September 5, 1939. All of the crew took to the lifeboats except the radio officer, who remained transmitting SOS. He was taken prisoner by U-48, but then released to the lifeboats as Schultz praised his courage. He verified that the lifeboats were provisioned with food and water. U-48 then stopped the SS Browning. The crew abandoned their vessel, but Schultz told them to return to their ship and pick up the crew of Royal Scepter. However, Browning was headed for Brazil, so it wasn't immediately realized that they had survived. Winston Churchill assumed the worst, that the crew and 60 passengers were lost. He declared the act, quote, an odious act of bestial piracy on the high seas. U-48 stopped, searched, and released several neutral ships before encountering and sinking Winkley on September 8, 1939, after her crew had taken to lifeboats. On September 11th, she sank Furby. Some of the crew required medical attention following the sinking. U-48 provisioned the lifeboats, gave medical assistance, and radioed, quote, transmit to Mr. Churchill. I have sunk the British steamer Furby. Pause at 59 degrees 40 minutes north, 13 degrees 50 minutes west. Save the crew if you please. German submarine. So far, this U-boat's career is quite gentlemanly. They are against the ships, not the innocents aboard. Churchill wrongly told the House of Commons that the U-boat captain who had sent the message was captured. After 30 days at sea, U-48 returned to Kiel on September 17, 1939. During her first war patrol, she sank 3 ships. U-48's second patrol was even more successful. She left Kiel October 4, 1939, and proceeded to follow the same course as before. During the second patrol, U-48 sank a total of 5 enemy ships, including the large French tanker SS Emile Miguet on October 12th, Heronspool and Louisiane on October 13th, Sneaton on October 14th, and Clan Chisholm on October 17th. Following the sinking of Clan Chisholm, U-48 attacked the British steamer Rockpool with fire from her deck gun on October 19th at 1:32 p.m. However, the steamer returned fire. In order to avoid being hit, U-48 crash dived. She subsequently resurfaced and attempted to sink the steamer again when an Allied destroyer came upon the engagement. U-48 then broke off the fight and submerged again to leave the area. Following the sinking of 5 enemy merchant ships as well as the engagement with Rockpool, she returned to the safety of Kiel on October 25, 1939, after spending 22 days at sea. And she was ready to head out again. If you like my content and want more cool stuff to watch, please check out our new channel, Aviation Disasters Explained. The first videos go up for that channel on November 29th. Okay, let's look at her third patrol. U-48 left Kiel for her third patrol on November 20th, 1939. During this voyage, she sank a total of 4 vessels, including 2 merchant ships from neutral nations. The first to fall victim was the neutral Swedish motor tanker MT Gustaf E. Rauder. She was attacked by U-48 on November 27th, 14 nautical miles west-northwest of Fair Isle. The wreck was later sunk by an escort vessel. 1 person died, though 33 of her crew survived. The tug HMS St. Mellons attempted to salvage her. However, Gustaf E. Rauder eventually had to be sent to the bottom by HMS Kingston Barrel on November 28th. Following the sinking of Gustaf E. Rauder, U-48 sank the British freighter Brandon on December 8th off the southern coast of Ireland. The next day, she sunk the British tanker San Alberto. Finally, on December 15, 1939, U-48 stopped the neutral Greek freighter Germain, which had been chartered by Ireland and was also neutral, to carry maize to Cork. Schultz maintained that she was going to England, so he sank her. U-48 returned to Kiel on December 20, 1939, after spending 31 days at sea. After a break over the Christmas period, U-48 went out on the hunt again. She sank the Blue Star Line liner SS Sultan Star in the western approaches. The vessel was only carrying freight. She laid a string of mines off St. Abb's Head, which failed to have any effect, but she sank 2 neutral Dutch ships shortly after, as well as a Finnish ship, all of them operating in the North Atlantic in cooperation with the Allied convoy system. Her 5th patrol began in June of 1940, and it was one of her most successful, making full use of the situation in Europe following the fall of France. U-48 was commanded by Hans Rudolf Rosing, as Herbert Schultz was hospitalized with a kidney and stomach complaint. She attacked 3 ships off the County Donegal coast, Stankar carrying fish from Iceland, Eros carrying 200 tons of small arms from America, and Francis Massey with iron ore. 34 sailors lost their lives on Francis Massey. The cargo on Eros was particularly important following the losses at Dunkirk. The badly damaged Eros was taken in tow by HMS Berkeley, assisted by HMS Bandit and Volunteer, and headed to the Irish coast, where Muirthaughú and Fort Rannoch were waiting for them. Eros was beached on Araruri Strand. While she was being repaired, Irish troops guarded her. Germany learned that a troop convoy, including RMS Queen Mary and Mauretania II, were bringing 25,000 Australian soldiers to Britain. U-48 was ordered to Cape Finisterre, where a U-boat wolf pack was being assembled to intercept the convoy. However, the U-boats attacked other ships in the vicinity, alerting the convoy to their presence, so they altered course, avoiding the pack altogether. On June 19, 1940, convoy HG-34 was attacked. U-48 sank SS Baron Loudon, killing 3, SS British Monarch, killing all 40, and MV Tudor, killing 1. Convoy HX-49 dispersed, and U-48 sank Mordrecht, killing 25. U-48 sank Violando and Goulandris, killing 6, while U-28 sank Adamandios Georgandis, killing 1. Ireland sought an explanation from Germany, but would not receive one. U-48 was enjoying an extended patrol, thanks to the newly established refueling facilities available at Trondheim in Norway. In all, she claimed 8 ships from the convoys in the eastern Atlantic on this cruise and bagged 5 more on her 6th patrol in August, which finished with her stationed at Lorient on the French Atlantic coast, greatly extending her raiding abilities. The U-boat's 7th patrol was also successful, sinking 5 ships, including 2 from convoy HX-65 and damaging a 5th, also from this convoy, which had to be scuttled. The operating zone for both this patrol and the next was far to the north of her previous areas, being south of Greenland. In September, on her 8th patrol, she shocked the world by sinking SS City of Benares, one of 8 ships in 6 days from convoys SC-3 and OB-213. On board the liner were 119 children, 90 of whom were being evacuated to Canada under the Children's Overseas Reception Board initiative. Heinrich Bleidroth, the current captain of U-48, was accused of war crimes in the sinking but was ultimately acquitted. The sinking ship immediately listed, thus causing problems trying to launch all but 2 of the lifeboats. As hundreds of survivors, remember many are children, struggled in the water, the U-boat's powerful searchlights swept once over the chaotic scene before leaving the area. The survivors in the boats were not rescued for nearly 24 hours. In that time, dozens of children and adults died from exposure or drowned, leaving only 148 survivors. 19 children, 21 women, and 108 men, out of the roughly 408 on board. One boat was not recovered for a further 8 days. In total, 260 people, including 100 children, 35 women, and 125 men died in the disaster, which effectively ended the overseas evacuation program. The controversy of the City of Benares disaster has been hotly debated ever since. It has been suggested that the British openly declared that the ship was carrying evacuees, then the Germans would have taken extra steps to avoid sinking her, recognizing the potential for a propaganda crisis, which happened. However, the ship was not only traveling unlit at night in an Allied convoy, but it was also the flagship of Rear Admiral Edmund McKinnon, the convoy commander. Other historians have argued that the Germans would have attacked any large liners at the time, no matter what cargo was being carried or who was on the passenger list. However, the Benares was painted like a troopship, and the U-boat, believing it was a troopship, sank her. Among the other sinkings was the British sloop HMS Dundee. So what do you think? Do you think U-48 was justified? Or are you outraged? Thank you so much to our amazing YouTube members and patrons. If you'd like to have some awesome perks like episodes a full day in advance, join our YouTube memberships today. Alright, let's get into her final patrols and fate. On her 9th and 10th patrols, U-48 claimed 2 and 5 victims respectively, but she was clearly becoming obsolete in the face of improving technology on both sides, despite a winter refit. Her range and torpedo capacity were too small for the widening nature of the sea war, and she would be a risk to her crew and other U-boats if she continued much longer in the main battlefield of the North Atlantic. On her final patrol, she sank 5 more ships. The boat was boosted by the award of the Knight's Cross of Iron Cross to Eric Zern, the boat's executive officer, for his success and judgment during the ship's career. U-48 returned to Kiel on June 22, 1941, where her crew disembarked and she was transferred to a training flotilla operating exclusively in the Baltic Sea. Unlike many of her contemporaries, U-48 never sailed on patrols against Soviet targets following Operation Barbarossa the following month. In 1943, she was deemed unfit even for this reduced service, being laid up at Neustadt in Holstein, with only a skeleton crew performing minor maintenance. It was there that she remained for the next 2 years, until the maintenance crew, realizing that the war was ending and the boat would be captured, scuttled her in the Bay of Lubeck on May 3, 1945, where she remains. U-48 left behind a legacy of awesome devastation. 52 ships sunk to the bottom of the ocean, which measures out to roughly 306,874 gross registered tons of steel. She operated in the cold depths and operated with just as cold ruthlessness, leading to controversy, chaos, and intensity during the bloodiest conflict in human history.